Hi again. Just wanted to say a couple of words about engine failures. As a passenger, crew member, or whatever, everyone is concerned about the reliability of the engines on the airplane. Engines on the airplane, the modern airliners, commercial jet airliners, are very, very, very good. The probability of failure is generally infinitesimally low. Someone asked me not long ago what if you're on a two-engine airplane and both engines quit? Well, you need to get one started. But let's just talk about the engines in general. In the old days, you had a lot of large jets that had 3 and 4 engines. And in those cases, whether it's 3 or 4, if you lost one of the engines, the rest of the engines would power the airplane very, very easily. If you lost one engine on a four-engine jet, you have 3 more, it'd be a minor inconvenience. Same for a 3-engine jet. If you lost one engine, the airplane flies just fine. I've experienced that. Things get a little quiet, but the airplane just handles great. But what if you're on a 2-engine airplane? Most of the commercial airliners today are 2-engine airplanes. The large number of engines on like the 747, even the A380, those airplanes are being phased out or at least limited in production. But most aircraft today are 2-engine models. What if you lose one engine? Well, you've lost 50% of your power. Good news is that certification requires that all airplanes actually be able to do everything under the worst possible circumstances on just one engine. That's takeoff, landing, in-flight, everything. They have to do everything on one engine. So it's already a backup plan that's built in that if you lose an engine, you basically revert to specific procedures. So you're more likely to have one engine that's gone. But generally what happens, they typically don't just quit. You may have a situation where emergency procedure may direct that an engine be shut down for safety, to preserve the engine if it's running rough or there's some mechanical problem that will just get worse if it keeps running. That's built on the fact that they know that the remaining engine or engine will power the airplane to make the remainder of the flight safe. Technically, if you lost an engine, you would be declaring an emergency. I'm not saying it's a routine situation. It's not a routine. It is an emergency. But if you did lose the engine, the remaining engine would work just fine. You'd be able to fly just as well. The pilots would be executing certain procedures to make sure everything is configured properly, electrically, hydraulically, mechanically. But often that happens automatically now. There are automatic systems that will just make the transfers that they needed. In the old days, you had something called a flight engineer. Flight engineers are probably rarely used now. But the flight engineer used to manage systems and can coordinate hydraulic power, electrical power, those kinds of things. Now a series of computers do that switching when it's necessary. But if you lose 2 engines, that's a different deal. The chance of having dual engine loss is infinitesimally small for a mechanical problem or any problem. Even losing one engine, the chance of losing one engine is like 0.000001. Maybe you lose an engine one time in, let's say, 500 plus thousand hours of flying, which would mean that if a person flew long enough, they might statistically have an engine failure once every 165 years. It's not likely to happen. Dual engine failure, even less likely. If you lost both engines, you only have 2 engines, if you lose all your engines, you got a problem. You need to fly. The airplane won't go straight down. It is still an airplane. If it's moving through the air and you've got enough altitude, you'll be descending and you'll have speed, so the airplane will fly, and the pilots will be doing everything they can to get the engine or engines started. You generally just need one. If it's a 2-engine airplane, you need one. If there was an unexpected dual engine failure all of a sudden, there's something called a RAT, a ram air turbine. Some planes may call it an air-driven generator, but a ram air turbine that would automatically deploy This is like a device that's usually in the aft part of the airplane, underneath the belly, a little bit behind the landing gear. Some airplanes, it might be out to the side, but it's basically a big propeller that's connected to a kind of a hydromechanical unit that'll spin and generate power and power your hydraulic systems so the air crew can maintain control of the aircraft, even with no engines operating. Normally the engines did that, but with no engines operating, the rat will do that. The ram air turbine, not the rats on the ground. So in that case, you do have some time, and everything, it depends on how high up you are. If this happens at a low altitude, well, you don't have a lot of options. Many of you probably remember the Miracle on the Hudson, where Captain Sully Sullenberger of U.S. Airways, which later became American Airlines, did that miracle landing on the Hudson. He took off out of LaGuardia Airport on a very nice day and ingested a flock of birds in both engines. Very unusual, but both engines seized up, and he found himself climbing out, heading towards the city, and knowing that he really couldn't make it back. He couldn't land anywhere, couldn't make it to Newark. There was nowhere to land it, and made the split-second decision to land on the water. A water landing, an unplanned water landing. Water landing is very complicated. Transoceanic flights are over water the entire time. I think that's one of the worst things to have to do, is to land in the water, ditching as we call it. There are a lot of procedures for that, and some airplanes even have a ditch switch, which basically says if you're going to land in the water, it's going to seal up everything, all the external inlets on the airplane. You have to land, parallel to the waves and into the wind. Yeah, good luck pulling that off in the middle of the night. But the chances of that happening are really, really very slim. But dual engine failures are rare. Sully Sullenberger did an outstanding job with no time to spare. That's an extreme situation. I had never heard of one like that before. I probably won't hear of anything similar to that again. But just rest assured, your aircraft engines have been thoroughly tested. You might say, well, you said they're thoroughly tested. What happened to his engines? He hit a big flock of big birds that did enough damage on the rotating blades, the inlet guide planes, and all the components of the engine to just mess them both up. That is a rarity. It's not impossible. When those engines are certified, they actually test them shooting frozen chickens through them to see if the disturbance, will make their engine quit. And it basically has to survive a certain number of chickens before it deteriorates. But I guess in Captain Sullenberger's case, there were just too many birds. That's very unusual. In any case, just a few words on engines. Have a safe flight.